Hello, I am Paula Bennett and welcome to my New Zealand Herald podcast, Ask Me Anything. Now, one thing I've learned in life is it's never too late to learn something new. So on this podcast, I talk to people from all walks of life to hear about how they got to where they are, get some advice and guidance on some of life's biggest questions. I have a fabulous woman on today. She is an absolute bubble of energy and fun. Early morning radio listeners will recognise her voice as their early morning source of news. She's an award-winning newsreader. I almost don't want to say your name. I just want you to talk so they can guess.
Shall I say my full name? Niva Retimanu, or my full name?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, there's a test, so you have to say this. Whaana Niva, Tapa'au, Whaasasina, Whaapopo Retimanu. So that's my Christian name, my middle names, and my surname.
Go one more
Paula,
time.
Are you jealous?
Yeah, one more time.
Okay. Whaana Niva, Tapa'au, Whaasasina, Whaapopo Retimanu.
Okay, we're sort of leaping straight into it. But aren't your brothers and sisters like Peter, Mary, Susan or something?
Exactly. I tell you, Peter, Paul, and Marie. Isn't there that band, Peter, Paul and Mary?
Yeah.
So that's also, like a lot of
So
people.
how did you get? Are you the oldest?
No.
No?
I am child number 3 out of 4. So
Wow.
I know. I said that to Mum and Dad. I said, what the hell is going on here? And it was just because we're Samoan, obviously, and my grandmother and an auntie and someone else decided to arrive in New Zealand the day I was born.
Wow.
November the 9th. So then they said, no, let her have all those names. Give her all those names. And so my sister, her middle name is Josephine. My youngest brother, Paul, his middle name's Eddie. And my brother, Whaapopo, which is our dad's name. And I've also got that one. So, we laugh when I get together with my siblings. They said, trust the one who's a broadcaster, who's in media, who ends up getting all the names. So it's hilarious.
Man, you got all the names.
I know. So sometimes when the news is really, really short, I always say, well, just let me just fill it in with my full name.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, my housekeeping rules, 2 of them. One is...
Don't talk too much.
Well, I'm allowed to ask you
Oh,
anything.
you are. Oh, stop it. Gotcha. So I wondered why it was called that.
Yeah, I can ask you anything that you don't actually have to answer.
Okay.
Because you would know on radio that silence is the worst thing, isn't it?
It is. You're quite right.
So if you
could
don't
drive
want to
10
answer,
buses through it.
I think you would have trouble doing this. But if you if you don't answer something, you could just zip it. You could just not talk.
I like you, Paula. I think I'll probably answer everything.
Yeah, you're not. And I call it the safe space. So my daughter and I say no judgy zone.
Oh, I like that.
Then we still gossip.
Yeah, we still
but then
gossip,
we'll go,
yeah.
No, not judging that she slept with her cousin's wife's boyfriend.
That's right. Well, hey, you know what? I have it, but I often say that when I'm thinking about, talking to other people, go, no, Neva, don't be judgy.
No.
So I love that rule.
Yeah. It's lovely that they were free-loving.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, if you could invite anyone to a dinner party, who would it be?
Oprah.
God.
Has everyone said that?
No.
Oh, wow.
I don't think I've had Oprah.
Oh, I love
hear you. I hear you.
I mean, I wanted to be Oprah.
Me too.
And I loved her just because I thought she's really sassy and she was fat and, and all of that. And I just really resonated with her. And
But so smart and obviously so smart, so entrepreneurial, all of that sort of stuff. But then, as you say, so human, so real.
Absolutely. And that brutal honesty. And I think that comes with age and experience and life and journey, and you make mistakes, but I have become very more real in my own behaviour, but brutal honesty. And I always remember Oprah and, her, the programs and the episodes and the honesty that was there, and I loved it because you can tell when people are not genuine. And I hate that.
So would you cook?
No.
I've heard a rumour.
Oh, no, I hate cooking.
I've heard a rumour. I have heard a rumour that your oven, like you so didn't use it that you actually turned it into a storage cupboard.
Oh my God, it is true.
Is it true?
Who told you that?
I can't give away my sources.
I think I've only mentioned that once many, many years ago, but that is true.
Is it true?
It is true. Paula, even to this day, I mean, I make simple things, but I think that's what delis are for. But I would rather speak and get up and stand up and talk in front of 300 people and ad-lib than prepare a meal or a bowl of soup for 6 people. It wasn't, I'm not gifted in that area.
Yeah.
My brothers are really good cooks.
That's good.
I've got family members who are foodies and wonderful chefs, but and I don't want to learn. I just,
you don't have to.
Yeah. So I just thought.
I did hear even though that it was a Smeg oven, and I just want to say that would be the most expensive storage cupboard in the world.
Well, you were so right. And my friends and people would come over and they go, oh my God, because I never actually open the oven. And I always dust around the top part, or I might put my coffee pot on there, or, just put a pot on there and boil a couple of eggs in there. But I actually never use the oven. I don't bake. I'm not a baker and things like that. So people would go, what a waste. And I think once I just put a pot plant on there, and I just, because I was never turned it on.
Yeah.
So it was seen as like just a little wee cupboard.
It's fantastic. All right, that's good. Okay, part one of our chat is to learn a bit more about you, and then in the second segment, you've already touched on it and I love it, we're going to focus in on how to be straight up and owning your truth and advice that you give to young Pacifica people. So firstly, Niva, you grew up in Invercargill. Yes. And your parents were Samoan immigrants?
Correct. I mean, Invercargill, everyone goes, what the hell? How did a Samoan couple end up there? And it was the freezing works. So my parents, both from Samoa, they weren't educated, didn't speak English, like many Samoans in the 50s and that, and Pacific Islanders, they just wanted a better life for their family, and this was before they had children. And I'm so pleased that they didn't go straight to Auckland like everyone else. And the reason for that, I think they did stop off to Auckland, but they were promised work. So my parents were they were one of 3 couples who moved down to Invercargill, and they were the first Samoans to move down to Invercargill, the 3 couples, and it was because of the promise of the freezing works, and it was the ocean beach in Bluff. So they went straight down there, and I think too, what amazes me is that I think they didn't realise that it would be so cold and they'd have to acclimatise.
No, that's all I can think.
No.
When you were saying freezing, I was thinking, what freezing works? All I could think was they must have been freezing.
And they were. And they did freeze their asses off. And I think they just thought, yay, we won't be unemployed. We'll be getting some money. We'll be getting paid. The men will be getting paid. And so they thought Invercargill. But they didn't actually see that Invercargill was down the bottom of the South Island and that it would be so cold.
Wow. I just can't get over it. And so they must have been a huge influence on you and your siblings, right?
Oh, absolutely.
That work ethic and actually going to Invercargill where they didn't have support is it's pretty incredible.
Oh, and it was pretty out there too, because as children, we only knew what we knew there. So there were very few Pacific Islanders, and in terms of children and cousins and that growing up, there was a small circle of community support for them, as opposed to, in places like Auckland and Wellington, where a lot of the Pacific Island communities would gravitate to when they'd come from Samoa. So that was the first thing in Invercargill. They did not have that support.
Yeah.
So there were just small little groups. And for us as kids, for my siblings and I growing up, it was very different for us. I mean, we didn't have very much money. It was so cold, so you couldn't actually go out and play. And those were the days before McDonald's and things like that. And because our parents didn't have money, and it was so cold, so they spent a lot on their power bill. And as children, we spent a lot of time at the library. And that was because it was free. It was warm, and we could just go there, and our dad would always take us there. And I am so pleased that he did that, because English was our second language.
Yeah, I was going to say, so did you grow up speaking Samoan?
We grew up speaking Samoan. And even when I first went to school at the age of 5, didn't speak English very well. It wasn't until 7 or 8, so we were speaking Samoan all the time at home. English was definitely my parents' second language. So going to the library was really great for my siblings and I think that was quite good educationally, and particularly for me, being a newsreader, that's where I developed the love for reading.
Yeah, and words.
And because, those were the days before video, and we did have a TV, but we read everything. So it was even, comics to books, but developing that love for reading.
Yeah, my mum was a librarian, and so I spent after school most days at the library waiting for her to finish work. And that love for books, eh?
Yes.
Yeah.
And even just, I remember there was one of the teachers there, and she would just have story time, and, she'd just read a book to all the kids and things like that. And I thought, wow, because, like being Samoan, that didn't really happen for us as kids. And so we loved that story time and be just sitting there and just immersed and taking all of that in.
Yeah, yeah. And am I right that your parents died when you were quite young, relatively
Yes, they
young?
did. Well, I was in my 20s, so they had cancer. My father died first and then my mother. And that was, at the time, it was difficult for my siblings and I. We didn't know our grandparents and they weren't alive when, as when we were growing up. I think we had a grandmother, she was in Samoa. I'd met her once, but that was it. But our other three grandparents were dead. And then our parents, when they passed away, it was very weird for the four of us, for my two brothers and my sister and I, because we were so used to just being on our own.
Yeah.
And that's, when we have friends and they talk about if they didn't have a close relationship with their parents and they had a close relationship with their grandparents, but we didn't have that. So
and that's young, right?
That is young. So my siblings and I, we would talk about that together when we'd get home, or would be saying, "Oh my gosh, blah blah blah." They've both got their parents, and we go, "Wow!" And they've got grandparents.
Yeah.
And we used to think, "Wow," because our normal is not their normal.
No.
So
how did you deal with that grief? And I imagine that, with all respect, it wasn't a fast. If it's cancer, the illness takes time, right? It wouldn't have been an accident or an overnight thing. It's tough.
It is tough. And I think too, because we were in our early 20s and when that was happening, and there was no counselling services or rule books or when they're going through, when your parents are going through that, or if they've been told, they've got 6 months to live. And because none of us, were living in Invercargill, my parents were there, but with their care and everything, we would go down, I was living in Timaru at the time. And so I was, getting on the bus because, when you're young, I didn't have a car or anything like that. So you're travelling every weekend. And that was really difficult. And I think at the time, as well, when my father died and then when my mother died, when one parent goes, it's you put all, your effort into the second parent instead of your own grief. Because, I was thinking, oh my gosh, my dad's gone, how's my mother going to feel? And then instead of looking after myself and thinking, well, it's your dad who's died. How do you feel about that? And I didn't think about that, not really. And until she passed. And so the grief had consumed me really, and it was quite horrible. And where I fell into depression, there was depression there.
So do you think talk more? Do you think, look, I'm going through it at the moment. My father died last year. My mother's really unwell at the moment. And, a few days ago, I just kind of had a complete meltdown and I was exhausted. The truth be, I was sleeping on a chair in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I'm not looking after myself well enough to actually be able to look after her, really.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm really so sorry that you're going through this, Paula, because it's you don't know how you're going to feel about it, and you've just got to allow yourself to let all the emotions come through. Because sleep deprivation is huge, and it's a very emotional time from when when a parent is dying to when that parent actually does die. And nothing can prepare you for that. And that's if you've got your siblings and auntie and uncles and, that support, because really it's an individual thing as well that you will go through. You will have your own feelings about this compared to a sibling. And it's something that only you will go through. And you have those memories of your mum and you have those memories of your dad. So for me, I was just like grief-stricken.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise.
And then you felt it going into depression. You felt yourself sort of
did, because
sinking.
I didn't take care of myself. And like I wasn't sleeping. I lacked energy. I wasn't eating well. I wasn't eating my vegetables. And then all of a sudden too, I was smoking cigarettes and I was, being the party animal, because I am an extrovert, but I was overcompensating.
Yeah.
I was kind of like trying to numb everything because I didn't want to feel
People don't
pain.
think that extroverts get depression and go through life's ups and downs, but you're right, they do.
They're probably the worst.
We do, yeah.
We are the worst kind of people to do that, because we've always got friends. We're the life and soul of the party, and everyone expects us to be up or whatever. But there's always a lot of people around.
Yeah.
Around us. We're not. A lot of people were around me, but I didn't open up to a lot of my friends because I didn't actually know what I was going through.
Yeah, true.
And I think that's one of the biggest problems, is not knowing. And I think back to at that time, we're talking about, like 30 years ago, there wasn't the services and the awareness like there is now. But also too, in saying that, when you're going through it, you've also got to be reminded about asking for help and knowing. And that's one thing that I had to do. I was always there for other people, but I also had to remember to put my hand up and say, I need help.
Yeah.
And that was that took a lot too, to actually acknowledge that I need help. And one of the first things I did was that I went to my GP and I said, I'm just drowning here. There's just so many things that are going on, that I'm not sleeping and blah, blah, blah. And then she said, oh, you're depressed.
Yeah,
you need help. Are you asking me for help? And I said, yes. And she said, right, well, you know what, you need to go and see a counsellor. And so that was one of the first things that I did. And also,
thank goodness she took you seriously and just went into action mode, because, it is different now, but a lot don't.
Oh, absolutely, a lot don't. You're quite right.
Get up again tomorrow and put your lippy on and let's go.
Yeah, that's right. And because there were so many things that were happening, like, because I had to stop smoking cigarettes, I had to have a healthy lifestyle, including, exercising. There were so many things that I had to do. And I said, what do I do first? And she said, oh, you've got to stop smoking. That's the first thing. And I went, oh, for goodness sake, I'm trying to lose weight. Now if I have to, I said, it'll be the last thing. She said, just get on with it, And I thought, wow, okay, she's right.
Nice.
Just get on with it.
Nice.
And the counselling was really good for me, because talking therapy. It doesn't work for everyone, and you've got to find out what works and what doesn't. And also too, what I have said to friends and other people is that if you are referred to a counsellor, and if you don't get on with that counsellor, don't persist and continue with having a couple of sessions. After the first 10 or 15 minutes, or after the first session, if it doesn't work for you, if that person's not right, and maybe you're not right for that counsellor as well, then go and find someone else.
But do go and find someone else.
Yes.
You haven't failed at counselling.
Absolutely not.
You've just not quite met your
I've
match.
had 6 different ones.
Yeah.
It's like, it can be like dating.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
you just keep going and you don't stop.
Yeah. I think sometimes if someone doesn't gel, then they think it's something wrong with them and that counselling doesn't work for them, whereas they actually just haven't found the right person.
Yep,
that's going to help them get through it. So how long have you been at ZB? How long have you been doing
a long
mornings?
Time, Paula. If I say that, you might know how old
So how are you going with 3 a.m. starts? I suppose that's where I was getting to.
Okay, I think I've been actually here at ZB for probably, I've been there for about over 40 years in radio. I think for ZB Auckland, it's been, I think I might be coming up to nearly 30 years.
Yeah, that's
28, 29.
So how do you handle those? How do you handle the sleep deprivation and those sorts of hours? Because you do 3 a.m. and I'm told that you're chipper and you're actually really lovely when you come into the office. I think I'd just be a grump.
But I think too, Paula, this is part of my life where I've made changes. I've made changes previously, and this has carried on to my life. And so I've been doing breakfast now for 6 years consecutively and full-time, whereas prior to that with ZB, I was doing it part-time, and then I was doing afternoon news reading and full-time and all of that. But I think I've made it work for me, and that is just how I look after myself. I nap every day, and the sleep deprivation is one of the worst things, because I also know too that I could slide back into depression if I don't look at that. So in the morning, I actually I am a morning person, probably not getting up at 3 a.m, but once you're up, you're up.
Yeah.
And I have a strict regime of, I have a shower every morning because some people don't shower, they'll just get up and I don't like that.
I don't get that.
No, I don't get that either. I always make sure I look lovely and nice in the morning because at that time when I'm here on air between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m, there are only probably about 20 people in the newsroom. So you're not going, but that's Monday to Friday. And I think I've got to look great.
Yeah.
And then I'll feel great. And then I'll sound great. So that's that positivity.
I used to get in the lift to go to work. I'm just a lot older now and a lot more sensible. But I used to, as I'd step into the lift, I would go, you leave you leave everything that's bothering you behind, and now you have an obligation to your colleagues and to your job to actually put a smile on your face and be present and do that well.
That's right. And you're absolutely right. And that's what I love and that's what I like to do. And I'll put on my lippy and I'll put on my mascara and I'll strut in and I'll go, righto, here we are.
Now,
and then I'll collapse after 9 o'clock.
Yeah, that's perfectly acceptable. We're going to get to the advice piece, which we've already been doing some advice, but we're going to get to the second stage very shortly. I just wanted to end because we both did discover that we both like a dress up. And I'm going to a fancy dress at work this afternoon with Bailey's, and they always theme them, and it's Japanese. So I always go as food.
Oh, I love that.
I've been as a taco. I'm going as sushi today. I have done a barbecue. I've gone as a sausage. I think you get to a certain age, let's be honest, where you can't really pull off sexy anymore. So you've got to go funny.
You are my twin. Yeah. I swear to God.
Yeah, but I've heard that you sometimes dress up in the morning.
Yes, I do. Oh and you know what really motivates me is that like Mike Hosking, it really upsets him so much that it makes me happy and it motivates me even more. But we do, and I do. I love dress-ups, and we are twins, I swear. I've got quite a few vegetable costumes.
Oh, I love
I've got 42 costumes at home.
That is impressive.
So I've come in as a carrot, watermelon, oh my gosh, banana, fruit, any kind of fruit, anything, strawberry.
I like food. Pavlova.
Oh, my goodness. And so I'm standing there in the studio, and even I'll try and put my headphones on, and if I've got the banana, carrot, oh, girl, I just, still in full gear. I don't care if the headphones slip off. And, it's really it's fun.
And as you say, Mike not liking it would just be a bonus. Yeah.
And he's the only one who doesn't wear a costume, but everyone else is all dressed up. And
I love it.
Oh, it's great.
Oh, you've made my day. Okay, we're going to come back very shortly, and we've got so much experience to draw on here. We're going to chat about some advice for Pacifica youth, how to be straight up and living your own truth. So we've talked a lot so far about your Pacifica heritage, so I think I just want to go straight there and let's talk a bit more about it. I mean, there wouldn't be a lot of Pacifica Samoan newsreaders, award-winning newsreaders when you started, but there's still not even today in New Zealand, is there really?
No, you're absolutely right. When I was in Invercargill, what I had going for me.
Sorry, I've just listened to it for so many years, and then, things I never thought I would hear, never say. So when I was in Invercargill, I just had no idea.
Because even now everyone goes, oh, you're Samoan. What?
Yeah.
You're from Invercargill. What? How the hell did that happen?
I've gone back there because it is funny. Okay, so there's not a lot, right? You're in Invercargill. How on earth did you end up as an award-winning and the top breakfast show in the country?
The one thing I had going for me at the time, and unbeknownst to me, and I thought it was more of a curse, was I had a deep tone to my voice at a very young age. So I was there at school, sixth form. I got a cadetship. It was kind of like, I was like a receptionist at the local radio station in Invercargill. So I was doing all the, washing the windows and doing reception work. And when I was there, the person who usually would read the community notices, she was off sick, and they said, oh, what about Niva? Niva, you can read, can't you? She said, no, just go in there and read some community notices. And I went, oh, okay, how hard could it be? So I was about 17 years old, went in there to read, and then the boss came out and said, that girl's got this deep tone to her voice. It's really, really unusual because most girls and women, our voices don't mature until we're in our mid to late 20s. And probably back then, and that was in the 80s, a lot of men were the broadcasters, very, very few women, or who were newsreaders like Angela Dordney. You could count them basically on one hand. But just doing community notices in a little old station at Invercargill, the boss said, someone needs to train that girl because, she might be a bit thick or whatever, but she's got a deep tone to her voice. So that was the beginning. That was the beginning of it, really. And I went to, not long after that, I actually went through an cultural identity crisis where I thought, do you know what? I actually think I need to quit this job at Invercargill at 4ZA, the local radio station, and find myself and go to Samoa.
Oh, good on you, yeah.
And my parents were both still alive at that stage. And because, there weren't many Samoans and I was going through that stage of, who am I really?
Yeah.
So I went to Samoa and it was the best thing that I ever did. And I went with a friend, she's Pākehā, she still lives there, 30, 40 years later, married, she's got grandchildren, speaks Samoan fluently, has a business there, and I spent a year there and it was just so humbling. And I worked at a radio station there, they put me on air on an English-speaking station in Samoa. I met a grandparent, my sole living grandparent at the time, and I started to learn the language again because, growing up as a child, I could speak Samoan, but then it went away as a teenager. And I would go back and practice my Samoan speaking. And I'd go to the taxi stands because all the taxi drivers were there and they could see me coming. They go, oh no, Niva's coming. She's going to practice the Samoan. And it was so bad. And they would go, let's go. And they'd all kind of disappear while I'd be walking up. But it was my first time in Samoa, and my father always talked about, that he had nothing came from nothing, and he walked over these, stones 5 miles, to get to school, and I saw those stones. I went to the village, and I could identify and I could understand what he was talking about and the reasons why my parents decided to leave Samoa, because it's very, there's no money.
No,
they lived off the land and with the crops and things, but there's no money there.
So do you worry about some of our Pacifica youth that they've never been back to their own country, that they haven't experienced that, and that they've grown up and, they've been born here in New Zealand, they've grown up here, and there could be some of that identity crisis?
I do. I think if they don't, they eventually will. It will happen. I don't have children, but I have 9 nephews and 3 nieces, and we all went back together.
Wow, great.
And that was about 3 years ago. And that was great because I loved seeing their faces.
Yeah.
Because they, when we went back right into the village, and it was very poverty stricken, and that they were just like, wow.
Yeah.
They could see exactly what their grandparents went through and to see that on their faces. But also to ask me questions, go, oh, Auntie, so when you were here, for that 12 months, and I said, this is in your blood. This is who you are.
So do you see yourself as a role model for Pacifica? Well, you have.
Yes,
You've blazed the trail. You deserve it. Yeah.
I suppose I'd like to still stay humble with it, but everyone has a story.
Yeah.
And it's just about what I do like now is being there for young Pacifica. I would never turn anyone away. And I say that because when I was, came out of my time and graduated from a Pacific journalism course, and when I was doing work experience, there were very, very few, Pacifica journalists there at the time, 30 or 40 years ago. There was one guy, and they said, right, Niva, you have to spend a week or 2 weeks, with this Pacific journalist. I said, great. But he was sick and he was away. Yeah. So I said, oh, can I go with someone else? And they went, no, he's the only one. And I said, but can I just go with anyone then? Does it have to be a Pacific pig? Can't I just go? And they went, no, you can't, because the deal was this, and so you have to wait. So I just thought
frustrating,
frustrating.
Look, you've said it in the past. Do you think that some use being Pacifica as a crutch? Do you think there's some of that kind of, I don't know, that it's, you've talked about it. Explain that to me a bit.
Even growing up and being in the media industry and being in mainstream for most of my life, for all of my life basically, when I go and I do a lot of public speaking to students and groups, and one of the questions everyone asks me, most people do ask me, is like, what are the problems that you've come across, or are there problems, and identify them as a Pacific woman or person in journalism for nearly 40 years in mainstream. And I find that really interesting because I said, I couldn't identify anything. And I said, I don't look at it like that.
Yeah.
Because once there are hurdles or I put a block there, then I'm never going to succeed. And I don't like that. So when I came into it, what I have done is I've turned it around. So being Pacifica, being a Pacific person, being Samoan, motivates me to succeed. And I've always seen myself, when I'm competing with other, for other journalists, alongside other journalists for a job, for a news reading position, I'm competing with everyone else on an equal level, no matter of gender, of ethnic, of race, diversity. I see myself as an equal. I don't see myself as anything different. And I think once you do, there can be problems there. I mean, I know there are different issues that you might have if you're young or if you've come from the islands to certain areas. But what I do say is, you've got to have that passion. If you have that hunger and that passion and how much you want to be a journalist and really make your mark in the world, that really shines through. That's what gets you across the line. I mean, resilience in adversity is everything. And I know with my story, adversity was there, and losing my parents at a young age, probably more so than others. And when I get knocked down, I just get back up. And not everyone, that's the thing.
I mean, I can remember I was handing out awards and certificates, and it was to a whole bunch of Pacifica, and they had done a barista's course, and it was for most of them, it was the first time they'd ever really achieved something, right? And all their family were there. There was, there would have been like 400 people in the room, honestly. They were just all so excited for these kids that had gone through this course. Anyway, and I was standing up, did the certificates, and then had to give a speech. And so I went, this is, congratulations and wonderful and good on you. And then I went, so who's got the ambition to manage the cafe? Of course, no one put their heads up. Who wants to own the restaurant? And of course, no one put their hands up. And, so who wants to be the supervisor? And no one put their, And then I went, it's because you're all too brown, eh? And this gasp went through, you know what I mean? Like, you can imagine some of the teachers and the family. And I went, it should be the kids down the road at King's. They should own it. And you should just work there serving the coffee. And they were like, and someone said, you should, shut up. And I was like, no, because it's just so not true.
Yes.
There is no one in this country better than you. There is I shouldn't say all that's holding you back because it's just so wrong, but your own ambition can get you everywhere.
Good on you.
Resilience. And, and I saw a few nod and I thought, I'm going to take that.
Yeah. And good on you because, like dreams, that's what we've got to dream.
Yeah.
Dream, go big. When I was thinking and dreaming about wanting to be a newsreader, I didn't just want to be a newsreader. I wanted to be the best newsreader that I could possibly be. And there's a difference there.
Yeah.
And so I know too, like with a lot of Pacific families and back in the day too, our parents didn't want us to be like, journalism wasn't really seen as a fantastic career. Like for children, they wanted their children to be lawyers, to be doctors, to be ministers, religious lay people, So a newsreader, a journalist or anything like that, or like, and as you say, a business owner is like, what?
Yeah, that's weird.
That's a bit out there, what's that about? So they're the kinds of things, it's kind of like breaking that mold and just saying, look, we can do this. You can be anyone and anything that you want to be. But it's also having that confidence and having that support. And not everyone has
and you can get it later in life as well. And, I mean, I call it the two something, and for me, when I thought about going into politics or I thought about putting my hand up for bigger jobs, it was me that was holding me back. And then I realised I'm just going to be two something for someone. I'm too short, I'm too tall, I'm too brown, I'm not brown enough, I'm too opinionated, I'm not opinionated, I'm too dumb, I'm too smart, so you're too something, so you might as well just get the hell on with it.
I love that. And that's so true. Because
it is.
And only we are holding ourselves back when we really think about it. If you want it badly, and that's when I tell the young journos and people, I always say to them, look, if there's not a job in Auckland or in the main centre, you just have to leave and you have to go to a region. You have to go to Timaru or Gisborne or Oamaru, because then they'll go, oh, what, where's that? Oh, no, I can't leave the family or do that. Well, no, tough.
Yeah.
Tough. You have to do it.
Get with it.
I did that, get with it, but if you really want it, you have to do it. And there's a lot to be said about passion.
Yeah.
And I think, is it just me? Or come on,
Yeah. But listen to you, you're so straight up as well. So, how do you handle being so truthful and being relatively blunt? Because you can be. And you did touch on it earlier, and you kind of said some of it comes a bit with getting a bit older. But, I had this doctor explaining to my mother for honestly 25 minutes, ultimately, did she want to be resuscitated, right? And around it, and I could see my mother just getting more and more confused. And then they stopped, and my mother looked at me and, if your heart stops, do you want them to restart it? She went, no. I went, done. We could have done that in 2 sentences.
What
the doctor went, oh my goodness. And I went, oh, listen,
dilly.
Around and around you went.
I swear to God we're related because we are so similar. And I'm so rapt that you did that because, I mean, you just have to take the bull by the horns and just get on with it. And you're obviously that kind of person. I think for me, I've learnt to do that. And also too, I think through counselling and everything that I've gone through as well, and just part of the changes that I made and writing a book, because I ended up running marathons and that. And so I found that cathartic writing, and it was in my own voice. But it was, like the marathons, things that I did, I came last. And people were embarrassed. People get embarrassed by those kind of things. And they go, oh my God, how long did it take you to run a marathon? And I'd be saying it out quite proud. I'd say, oh, it would take me 9 hours. And they'd go,
well, the fact that you can be upright for 9 hours is just incredible.
That's the whole day. And people didn't like to say it out aloud. And they said, God, you must be so embarrassed. I went, no, I'm not. So my brutal honesty just gathered more and more, because I thought, where's the fear? Why are we afraid? If we're alive, and it was like if you were too big to run a marathon, because only, people who are size 6 or 8 could run a marathon. But if you're size 14 and 16, you can't run a marathon. But here I was. And as long as, and I'd say to them, as long as I'm not in an ambulance at the end and I can still, have a glass of wine and party with my teammates, I'll be happy. And I did that 8 times. I ran 8 marathons around the world, came last in all of them. But it was the journey, and it was just the adventures that I had. And I think that helped me, because I became I'm even more comfortable with who I am, and I've got nothing to prove. So even when I come in and I know I'm not going to be there at Newstalk ZB for the rest of my life, and when I go, I go. And when I'm, you never say never to anything, whatever's around the corner.
Sure. But how exciting, right? How exciting with life.
Absolutely.
And it is all there.
And it's just finding your joy. And I think that's the one thing that we tend to forget. I mean, if you're doing a job, that's what I love. I love news, and I'm still there because I love news, and I know where I've been in every big major event, whether it be a happy or sad, tragic world event, but that's what makes me get up every morning. But you also too, you find joy with that. But the day you don't have joy with your job, then there's something wrong.
Do people recognise you from your voice?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could be in a shop or something, and then they'll go, I know you. And then it's because they've...
So I really try very hard not to swear or say anything, because no.
Yeah, that familiarity with your voice must really, Yeah, I would. I'd know you from your voice.
You go, oh, there's old fat and never tapa old fat
Yeah,
sasina.
it's exactly what I would say.
Or never eat a tomato. That's been one of my best nicknames.
That's good.
Isn't that great?
No, so I was in Nelson the other day and someone said to me, oh my goodness, you look like Paula Bennett. And I said, I've had that before.
I just said, gosh,
And then
she must be really
and
cool.
she went and spoke to my friend. She goes, that is Paula, isn't it? And she goes, I can't say. And bless this woman, she came up and she said, look, if you do ever meet Paula, can you just tell her that I think she's more beautiful and she just gave me all these amazing compliments. I said, I'm so going to tell Paula that because she's quite full of herself and she'd like to hear it. Yeah, she's quite up herself and she'd like to hear it. Okay, I've done all the questioning. This is your opportunity, if you would like to, that you can ask me something.
Ask you?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
You can
Is it
ask-
just one question or can I have a
Yes.
couple?
Well,
quick
more
fire.
than one, really.
Okay.
Quick fire.
Mind you, everyone's probably asked you these questions. Okay. Who's your celebrity crush?
Oh, no one's asked me that.
Oh. Who's your celebrity crush? You could either want to sleep with this person or you could either want to interview this person. Like, who would you like on your podcast?
Yeah. Who would you
International,
just go, oh my
And then you can sleep with them after you've interviewed.
I was having with my daughter at Christmas and talking about my podcast, and I said, imagine having Taika and Rita on.
Oh, you could do
I
it.
don't think anyone's done that. Like,
could be
imagine
reality.
those two. Like, that would be, that's a crush. That's a, you know what I mean? Like, that would, I mean, I fangirl a lot. You know, like
Yes.
people like Madeline Albright and, you know, like those
yes.
kind of, those big
Yeah.
brains. And
What about
you know
an
what I mean?
actor?
Like, yeah, they sort of get me. I'm
Idris
sorry.
Elba.
But yeah, and George Clooney's just hot.
Oh, George Clooney.
But it
yes.
sounds so, what is it? You know, but he is. He's just,
Yeah, he is hot.
he is just a good looking man,
He
you
is.
know?
Can I ask you another question?
Yeah.
Okay, if you could change your name to anything, what would it be? Because I often get that because, you know, that people go to me, gosh, you've got the coolest name, Niva Retimanu. And I go, well, no, it's not that cool.
Well, before I went into politics and when I could make things up, we used to go by the name Imelda Burns.
Shut up, Imelda Burns. You look like an Imelda.
How's that? Imelda Burns.
Imelda Burns. Do you know what I would change mine to?
No, go on.
Gertrude Shut Your Face.
Oh, I like that.
Because imagine it's on the news. And I'm Gertrude Shut Your Face for Newstalk ZB News.
I am so leaving it there. 'Cause that is the best. So that's it from Gertrude and Imelda. Okay, thank you so much for coming in and joining me today. I have had an absolute blast. If you all want to hear more from Niva, well, you know where you can go and do that. You just need to listen on the Mike Hosking Breakfast on Newstalk ZB, Mondays to Fridays. And you've had your podcast in they should go back and have a listen. What's it called?
Straight up. With Beatrice and Niva.
Oh, I love Beatrice.
Oh,
We're gonna
yes.
talk about her. Okay, go back and listen to those because that's an absolute blast. And that's it for another episode of Ask Me Anything. You can get in touch with me by emailing askpaula@nzherald.co.nz. Send me through your questions for the podcast, any thoughts you have. Find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Make sure you follow Ask Me Anything on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Paula Bennett, not Imelda Burns. Ask Me Anything. Goodbye.